Coming up on Unscripted with Daniel.
Nepotism is a problem in politics.
Yes.
We make these assumptions that a name or money or legacy or whatever is going to do a better job, which sounds great, right? On paper, I would love to think that I could pass my business off to my daughter or my stepdaughters one day. But are they really going to care for it like I will?
Yeah.
Like, how do we know that if we haven't actually seen that in action?
Right.
We are in the no kings era.
Right.
We have the Hoosiers. We have Americans. We have people all over the world marching for no kings. Like, we have that energy. So why would we allow anything that even like resembles that to be the reason? Right. Mm-hmm. The only qualifier.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing I hear all the time. Well, he's got the name and the money. Well, most people want money out of politics.
Yes.
Having the right name got us most of our Republican elected officials too. Mm-hmm. Do we really want to still do that?
Yeah.
So
time for change.
It is time for change.
Welcome to Unscripted with Daniel, your free, independent news source for Valparaiso and Indiana politics.
I've been too proud, I've been lonely and heartbroken. I was smothered by love till it made me choke. Been liquored up and stoned down. I've been sober as a judge cause my stash ran out. But all I know for sure right now.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of WVLP LP, its staff, or affiliates. Welcome to Unscripted with Daniel. Today I'm sitting down with Blythe Potter. She's running against Bo Bai for Secretary of State of Indiana. Would you care to tell me a little bit about yourself before I jump into the questions?
Absolutely. I'm Blythe Potter. I'm seeking the Democratic Party nomination for Secretary of State. I'm from I live in Johnson County. I'm from Southeast Marion County, rural communities. I'm a mom. I'm a veteran, small business owner, and I love Indiana. We got to change some things around here so we can get out of the mess we're in.
Okay. Why do you want to be Secretary of State? It's such a boring job, right?
It should be boring.
Yeah.
Diego Morales has made it a little too exciting for sure.
I know what you mean. Could you jump into that and then we'll go into why you want to make it boring again?
Yeah, well, yes, I would love to bring boring back to the Secretary of State's office. Well, historically, the GOP has done a terrible job of taking care of Indiana, right? We've had a supermajority for a long time. It is not working. It's not functioning. Secretary of State's office, specifically, any number of reasons why we need to get rid of Diego, not least of which handing over our data to the Department of Justice with no questions asked earlier last year. Traveling on the taxpayer dime, maybe not, we don't really know, buying himself cars, purging voters with no notice, and just overall, he's corrupt. He is not fit for the job, which is sad. You don't want to say that about anybody, but he has proven time and time again he is not trustworthy. We've got to change things up. And the Republican Party, they're a disaster right now. Mm-hmm. We have a disconnect in the Democratic Party, but the Republicans are definitely a disaster. So the only way out of this is with Democrats. The only way we change politics is by getting people engaged with politics. Mm-hmm. And the easiest way to do that is to get them to vote. But how do we increase voter turnout? We share information about the elections. It's just marketing and advertising. Okay. So that's where this all started. I mean, as a small business owner, I have to be very creative with marketing. I have to know my community. And if we are going to be marketing politics largely to a quote unquote Republican base, we have to be able to think like them. We have to be able to put ourselves in their shoes. I've lived here my whole life. I know what it means to walk in those shoes. So I am very well equipped not only to do the job as Secretary of State, but to also help bridge that gap with the education and lack of transparency in the office, to just hopefully not even just do a good job as Secretary of State, but lead the way for other elected officials or other aspiring elected officials just to do things differently. We have to. Yeah,
to lead with integrity, which, I mean, to get into some specifics of one of the things that people don't like about Diego is that he hired his stepbrother and then gave him a $100K job that he just created.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need integrity.
We need integrity, but you touched on something else. Nepotism is a problem in politics.
Yes.
We make these assumptions that a name or money or legacy or whatever is going to do a better job, which sounds great, right? On paper, I would love to think that I could pass my business off to my daughter or my stepdaughters one day. But are they really going to care for it like I will?
Yeah.
Like, how do we know that if we haven't actually seen that in action? So I would absolutely take a no nepotism pledge once I'm in office, but we can't scream from the left, no nepotism, but then also like try to put that in office in some capacity.
Right.
So I think my record speaks for itself as far as being active, involved in community and politics in the state, not just a name.
Yeah, and I'm hearing, well, I can't help but think of Bo Bai when you say he's not necessarily nepotistic, but it's a family line, a family legacy of politics.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fall into that thought that, he has the last name, so he must be good at it. But that falls along the same sort of thought pattern of the lineage of like a king or something.
That's exactly right.
Right.
We are in the no kings era.
Right.
We have the Hoosiers, we have Americans, we have people all over the world marching for no kings. Like we have that energy. So why would we allow anything that even like resembles that to be the reason, right? The only qualifier.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing I hear all the time. Well, he's got the name and the money. Well, most people want money out of politics.
Yes.
Having the right name got us most of our Republican elected officials too. Do we really want to still do that?
Yeah.
So
time for change.
it is time for change.
So I have a question here about whether you would promise to not break any nepotism laws, but you already promised that you would sign a pledge to not do so.
And that could potentially be tricky because my husband is running for House District 47.
Oh.
So should we both get elected, there will be times where he and I would have to step out of rooms or he wouldn't be able to vote on things because of that. And that's already part of the conversation. So we are taking this very seriously.
Yeah, I could see how that could be complex. Could you go into the details of that? So he would have to step out of a room when deciding on what type of thing. Where does the conflict of interest exactly occur?
Well, if he's, let's say he's voting on the budget for the Secretary of State's office. That really wouldn't be something he should be voting on. So if it's legislation or policy that directly affects me, he would need to
say like a yoga studio. Like, let's give funding. No,
he would need to step out or not vote on it, right? Recuse himself.
Right. I see. So how do you distinguish yourself apart from the sort of political lineage of Bo Bai? How do you distinguish yourself from him?
Yeah. Well, his political lineage and my political lineage are very different. Mine resembles an everyday Hoosier, an everyday Indiana resident. Knowing what it means to be on the receiving end of bad policy, bad leadership, seeing what's happening, listening to what people have been saying. For the bulk of my adult life, I've heard the same complaints over and over again. It doesn't matter who it is, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, people who don't vote. We have the same complaints. Our streets aren't paved. Our politicians are corrupt. We have no return on investment with our taxes. We are not supported in our communities. We're losing healthcare. We're losing access to healthcare. We're losing autonomy. We're losing a lot. We are in a crisis mode, right? So my experience in politics is listening to other people complain about the same things, not changing. So if you know what the problem is and you felt the problem, you're going to be much better equipped to solve, or at least try to solve said problems, right? And it all comes down to voting. It all comes down to voting, education for the voting base. So they have the opportunity to vote. They know who they're voting for. Transparency about how these systems work so that they feel safe going into their polling locations or requesting an absentee ballot. We've had this intentional divide happening from the powers that be, right? The top 1%. So having someone who's not part of that 1%, who is very well experienced and equipped to do it, I think that beats a name and money any day.
Yeah. If you can actually relate to the needs of the average Hoosier, then and Bo Bai and that sort of political lineage maybe doesn't scream man of the people. It screams more of like a oligarchy sort of brand.
It definitely rhymes with that, right? It's,
Yeah.
And that's no shade to them as people, right?
Right.
We can't, we don't know, we don't get to choose how we're born.
No.
We don't get to choose our family. But when you have 5 million people living one way and a couple hundred people living another way, that's not balanced.
Right.
It's literally walking a mile in someone else's shoes. I've lived in those shoes in Indiana.
Yeah.
And that's what steamrolled all of this. We have to create change, and I need to be part of that to be able to stay here. So
you think, it's hard to emotionally relate to the average Hoosier if you are not.
Yeah. Well, I'm also an elder millennial, so I've had to pivot with a lot of things, whether it be technology or how we learn things or how we communicate. And my experience, not just in leading organizations and people, my experience being in leadership courses, right? Like Hoosier Women Forward, Emerging Leaders Project, Leadership Johnson County. I've literally been taught to communicate with different generations and different viewpoints. I've been taught civil civic discourse. I have a master's in business administration that focuses on conscious capitalism. This office oversees our InBiz website and a lot of the things that go into having a business in Indiana. So there is more than just voting that we can affect really good change on that can help everybody. We're a state that loves our small businesses, but we, by and large, treat them like crap. So we need to change that too.
Can you tell me how we treat them like crap?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, just with my experience, you have COVID. Let's take COVID for instance. We had the PPP loans, right? Well, we had all these larger businesses that were technically small business, because the definition of small business means you have fewer than 500 people.
Okay.
That's not exactly small. That's a large organization, in my opinion, but whatever. So those businesses got to keep millions of dollars. By and large, those businesses have the opportunity to get TIFs. They have tax abatements, where you have small businesses like myself. We had like 25 people at the time when COVID was going on and all that nonsense. We got $8,000. We were barely making it through shelter in place. So true, genuine, I would say grassroots startups, right, like that, they are not considered when decisions are being made on how small businesses or even taxing businesses is affected.
Yeah, that seems like something that's under 500 is like, we're talking about a corporation at that point. It's not a small business.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, obviously in that time, they had their definition of a small business. How would you bring this perspective of what a small business is and help those small businesses?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, make the websites more intuitive, just easier to navigate. If you change your business location like I have recently, and you need to update your registered retail merchant certificate, it should not take me 3 days and like 3 hours to still not be able to find it. I'm literally in that situation right now. And again, elder millennial, I can do tech. If I can't figure something out easily in a few clicks, something is wrong. So that right there. Also, let's say you're a small business owner, you're a veteran, you go and you apply for your LLC on the InBiz website. Well, maybe there's a little survey afterwards that asks you some demographic information. Are you a veteran? If yes, here are some grants or funding options or programs that you could maybe use to help you get on your feet. Well, let's talk about where's your location going to be? Is it going to be in Johnson County? Well, if you're going to do it in Johnson County, what city? Because Greenwood City will have different permits than town of Bargersville or Franklin or unincorporated Johnson County. And these are things that we should be able to find out easily. Whereas when we were opening our business, we got our LLC and we're like, yeah, let's go. We found our lease, and then they're like, oh, well, you need to get rezoned. You're going to need to get a permit from the Homeland Security Department because of your proximity to the railroad. And we're like, what? Why is there not a manual in this, right? This is something that is solvable, right? It will take time, it will take research, but it's solvable just to set people up on the right path so that they know, okay, I've got my $90 LLC, but there's going to be a $500 permit you're going to need for this. You're going to need a $700 permit for that. You're going to need an architect for this. Like things that people don't talk about. And we had a small build out. We didn't do ground up. We didn't do like any big, we added literally 2 rooms and 2 doors. And it took us 7 months. So just making things, taking some of the guesswork out of.
Yeah, that sounds like a complicated work with all those different rules in those localities, but if you're up to it, that would definitely streamline things. So let's get to the point. If you actually do get chosen as opposed to Bo Bai, you're running in a Republican state, how do you talk to that Republican voter who's in front of you? Say he is a Trump voter, say he's a really MAGA voter. How do you speak to his problems and tell him, I'm going to be your Secretary of State no matter what your politics are?
That's a really good question, but I want to capitalize on that. Okay. I'm not just talking to Republicans and Democrats and people who vote.
Yeah.
I want the non-voters. I want that 38% who are registered who decided not to vote. I want the people who have been over 18 and eligible to vote who refused to register to vote. I have neighbors in their 70s, never voted in their lives because they don't trust the system. And I've had these conversations with them as a PC, as a candidate, going canvassing. So I need people to know, if you're in a rural community, if you've lost faith in the system, I get it.
Yeah.
Same, right? I'm trying to change it because I've been in the same position. And some people will listen and other people won't give me the time of day, but I still want to represent them. And I want to listen to them because we need to be heard. That's the biggest problem I hear across the state of Indiana. Our representatives are not listening to us. And you can tell because we are still protesting. We are calling, we're emailing, we're showing up, we're rallying, we're doing all the things, and we're still being ignored. The legislation that's on the table right now, for instance, by and large, it's just garbage. They do not care about us. So to those voters, I hear you, and this isn't a Republican or Democratic issue. This is an existence issue. We are in a crisis. We are in this together. And the only way out of this is we are going to have to take a leap of faith and do something different. We are in unprecedented times. I'm an unprecedented candidate, and there's absolutely no reason why I can't get the nomination.
Yeah, I agree. And you'll listen to all of them.
I will.
You'll listen to every Hoosier, and that's a good message. Okay.
I will, but I also have been. I want to make sure that's very clear.
Yeah.
This isn't just like, oh, I run for this, now I'm listening. Part of the platform was birthed out of listening to people. This is not just all Blythe's ideas. Like, this is a combination of what people have been saying over and over again. So I have been listening, and I think that's a very important distinction to make.
100%. That's all my questions. If there's anything else that you want to talk about, you have my show. You can do whatever you want to say, or say what you want. Yeah, get on the soapbox. We'll get it out. And
well, I know there are people who believe that I am a problem in the Democratic Party. I'm disrupting the system. I'm not doing what should be done. I should give this to Bo. And this is no shade to Bo or anyone who thinks that. That is not democracy. That is not how this should work. We need to be modeling what we want to be modeled on a larger scale within the Democratic Party. The convention in and of itself is a form of gatekeeping. I understand that. Not everybody can physically get there. It's a long day, but it is so important and it is so vital. June 6th is a make or break day for the Democratic Party, in my opinion. What happens going forward is going to set the tone, not just for the Democratic Party, but for Indiana as a whole. So anyone who's going into this, regardless of what candidate they vote for, make sure you're looking at both platforms. Take away the names, take away the money, look at the issues, look at the campaigns, look at what we're doing, because you will see that I'm doing something different. I'm campaigning. I'm building a platform. I'm modifying it as we hear feedback, but I'm also party building. I'm looking for candidates up and down the aisle in other counties. I'm looking for precinct chairs. Obviously, I want delegates for people to vote for me. But I also am wanting to lower the barrier to entry for people to get involved in politics, whether it's having conversations like this, or sharing a social media post, or showing up at a Democratic Party meeting, even if they don't want to be Democrats, right? This is something that Hoosiers need. We need to be part of this conversation. A lot of our culture is, we don't talk politics. we have to start talking politics because it's the only way we change this. So just please go into it with an open mind, really look at the platform, have a conversation with me. If you don't ever think you would vote for me and you don't like me, or you're taking the bait of, oh, she's radical, alt-left, whatever, you should have a conversation with me because we probably have a lot more in common. And my platform is good. It is really good. It is like, well, it's kind of like my baby, but I think it can really set Indiana up for a long-term success, not just in politics, but in having some sort of sustainable, trustworthy governance. Also go to blythepotter.com, BLYTHEPOTTER, and I'm at Blythe Potter IN on all the social medias. And donate, be a delegate, all the things.
All right. I think that's everything we could talk about, unless we wanted to jump into, unless you've already covered this, what your platform is, your bullet points.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We'll put it, we'll do bullet points. So first and foremost, education and transparency. That's the umbrella for everything. I want to share information, at the very least have databases online where people can look up every candidate on their ballot.
Oh, yeah.
But not just candidate information, platform information. We need to have the opportunity to see who wants to do what with these offices, whether it be a municipal office, state office, federal office, what have you. That is hard to find. I've been a municipal candidate. Trying to find anything on other municipal Republicans is like pulling teeth because they have never had to. They have an R by their name. They just expect to win. I want to change that. I want the opportunity for people like myself to have exposure from the Secretary of State's office, not just relying on League of Women Voters, right? Ideally, I'd also like to have a printed ballot book, something that goes to registered addresses, to the registered voters, so they have something tangible that they can take notes on. They will have information. Again, they can opt out of it if they just want the digital. But that way, you're reminding them when their election is. Where's your voting location? Here's your candidates. If you like these candidates, you can write them down, take it with you to the polls. So we're educating them on who's on their ballot. We're giving them the opportunity to be invited to vote and make a plan, right?
Yeah.
But then overhaul some of the systems that are on the Secretary of State's websites. Make them more intuitive, bring them up to date. Campaign finance, I should be able to add an expenditure or a contribution or actually hit an amend button on there and it actually allow me to amend said form. It's clunky, it's outdated. If I can figure out where my Amazon package is in a few clicks, but it takes me 20 clicks to figure out like who's donated to whom, that's a problem. So I think that lowers the barrier to finding out more information about our candidates as well, and offer that to municipal candidates. Right now, it's all on paper.
I see.
So
those donations on the Secretary of State site allow for transparency of, maybe there are some interests that are untoward for how they've donated to a candidate. Is that essentially what's important for a citizen to be able to see?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People need to know
Yeah.
when a candidate is being funded by, for example, someone who's on the Board of Peace with Donald Trump, or someone who has got school voucher interests that have decimated our schools. Millions of dollars over the last since 2013.
Yeah.
So, I think that's important. Why would we elect someone who's supported by that? What is that going to say for us over the next 30 years if that person stays in some kind of office? Right? Yeah.
It tells us that we didn't know that there was not enough transparency for us to know we shouldn't have voted for them.
Yep.
On the note of your transparency of who the candidates are and like what their policies are, I've thought about that so many times. That it's so great to hear that you'll be doing that. So basically, every candidate, you'll have what their policy stance is ideally.
So the candidates will actually have to fill it out.
Okay.
They will have to actually put it on there. And
that makes
historically,
sense.
Republicans, like when League of Women Voters or local papers ask questions, they just don't respond. So they will have the opportunity not to respond, but it will be very well known that they chose not to respond. And I think choosing not to respond to tell your voters what you want to do with this office speaks volumes.
Yeah.
That's smack in the face. Vote for me, but you don't need to know my platform.
Yeah.
Vote for me because I have the name and the money, or I'm going to send out the most mailers. We got to stop that.
I agree. I imagine potentially it will lead to the same sort of partisan divide. Say if it's abortion versus anti-abortion, they're always, Republicans are going to vote for no abortion.
Maybe
not.
Republican elected officials might. But the majority of Hoosiers and the majority of Americans believe that abortion care is health care. And how do we decide that? We should be able to put that on a ballot. I would love to work with the state legislature so we can have ballot initiatives. If it's controversial, fine. Put it on the ballot.
So you would require certain stances to maybe be checked. You know, are you for this or against this?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Now, if it were up to me, I would say human rights needs to be at the top of everybody's list. I don't care what party you are.
Right.
If you do not value human rights and your policies and legislation don't reflect that, you should not be governing people. That's terrible return on investment. No, I can believe that abortion access is health care. As a 38-year-old woman who almost died in labor, I can believe that that is health care. You can believe otherwise.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about that if you and I are elected officials. We need to know what the voters want to know. And I think having those ballot referendums, having the opportunity to do that, electing in a state legislature that cares about actual Hoosier voices is what is important. So it doesn't matter what elected officials believe. We need to let the voters decide. And I also think having those ballot initiatives, having a legislature that trusts our voters to have a say in what's happening, or even just a survey. We can even start with just surveys, right? Whatever that looks like. Hoosiers need to decide this, not just our elected officials. We need to be trusting the voters, and I think that will increase voter turnout too. If they have more of a say in what our state constitution is or what's legal or not, I think people are going to show up.
So you put out a survey on, say, human rights or on abortion to the state of Indiana, and the majority of people hypothetically agree one way, then would there be a requirement that legislation shifts a certain way? Is that the idea of? Yeah.
I think it should.
Like a referendum?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a really cool idea.
And then we need to make sure that is something that stays there unless it's up for a vote again. Right?
Yeah.
None of this, like, we're just going to start taking things away. Oh, Democrats are in control, we're going to do this. Republicans are in control, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
We can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
The ping pong it's not good for anybody.
No.
It's not good for our mental health. It's not good for our financial health. It's not good for anything.
How can we change that, though? How can we get away from this partisan time where people just genuinely want to do that? There is a misunderstanding of the other side to the point that they would just rip out all the accomplishments of their opposition, and then they just start again. How do we move on?
We break the cycle.
Yeah.
We stop with the money in politics. We stop voting in the same people. We stop being a requirement of, you should be a wealthy white male. That's who gets elected. Yeah. We should stop with, she was next in line, or they were next in, we stop with the status quo and the expectation that candidates or politicians need to look a certain way. We share information about all of them. We elect people who are okay with not being reelected for the rest of their lives. I mean, candidates like myself who are grassroots, we are the ones who will make those changes.
Yeah.
No one else will.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Money out of politics, I think, is a huge deal. It goes back to Supreme Court cases, though, as far as how we repeal those, that's really the question. I do agree that that's one of the biggest problems we have in our country, because literally Elon Musk is able to donate $20 million to the Trump campaign directly.
Yeah.
And
people are starving.
People are starving.
People don't have health care or hospitals.
Right.
Yeah.
And whereas it was supposed to be at And in the past, in the beginning, it was $7,000 per person. That's it.
Yeah.
So then the oligarchy was like, we don't like that. We're going to claim that money is free speech, and we're going to get those candidates into our justice system who believe that. And that's where we are.
Yeah, it's where we are. But a lot of those systems came into place in very different eras.
Mm-hmm.
We can share information now in ways like never before.
Yes.
We can activate people like never before. And those of us who've grown up in this chaotic media world of misinformation, where it's more opinion than facts, a lot of us are starting to relearn and unlearn what media literacy looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the education piece as well. We need to be able to be providing factual information and combating misinformation. It is going to take work. This is a system that has been intentionally put in place to manipulate people.
Right.
And it's going to take time. And we won't solve all the problems, obviously, but if we can get people to vote, we can solve most of them in the long run.
Yeah, I think you get people to vote. You're not just getting people to vote. You're getting people to pay attention, paying attention to information, like you're saying, so that they're less susceptible to misinformation.
Yeah.
And maybe they can go into the history of how things are working and how we are in this money-driven system instead of a system led by we the people.
Yeah.
Instead of by corporations.
Yeah.
There's a lot to fight against, but together we can do it.
We absolutely can. We absolutely can.
All right. On that note, thank you so much, Blythe Potter, for the interview.
Thank you for having me. Is it okay if I go over how to be a delegate really quickly?
Absolutely.
Okay. So filing period is open, and deadline is noon local time on February 6th. There is a CAN 37. It's called Candidate Form 37. It's 1.25 pages. You just fill it out. If you have any questions about your precinct or information like that, you can go to indianavoters.in.gov, look that information up. It does need to be notarized. Your township trustee is required to be a notary. They're also required to notarize paperwork for free. So once that's notarized, which means you sign it in front of a notary public, and then you take it to your local clerk's office. But I believe in Porter County and Lake County, it's the Board of Election registration office. I'm trying to remember. I'm learning a lot of this as I go, right?
Me too.
It's super low commitment, but it does require you be in Indianapolis on June 6th. It is a long day. You'll be there probably 8 or 9 in the morning, but it's really, really exciting. You get to be around about 2,500 other people who are jazzed up, ready to go in November. You'll meet candidates. You'll hear from candidates. You can be involved with the caucuses. You'll get to hear what's happening with your congressional district, which it really isn't. I know people think politics is boring, but it's really fun and it can be really engaging, even when we don't always agree. So I think this is a good entry into what politics could look like in people's lives. You don't have to be a wannabe candidate. You don't have to be a precinct chair. You don't even have to go to Democratic Party meetings. You just have to pull the Democratic primary ballot at some point, be registered to vote in your county, fill out your CAN 37 before noon on February 6th. February 6th, yes.
Get it turned in before noon.
So many dates, many dates.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll see you on June 6th?
Yes, June 6th.
Or before then, because you're going to be around this area.
I'll be around.
Yeah.
I will be up here a lot lately, coming up.
Yeah. Oh, one more?
I am going to be here a lot this week. So Thursday, I will be at the Portage Democratic meeting at 6:00. Then I'm going to be at Ryan Komenikis' town hall just to pop by and support and say, hey. And then the Duneland Dems meeting after that at 7:00.
Awesome. You'll say hi to Erin Collins, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She seems nice. I haven't met her in person, though.
She is.
But, yeah. Awesome.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Boom. So that was a great interview. Basically, what I want to do now is just do a little review of what was said and honestly fill in about 25 minutes of time that is remaining in this radio segment. Now, like I said, this was a great interview of Blythe Potter, the Democratic candidate for Secretary of State. And I misspoke in the beginning. She is, she has to be chosen by the Democratic Convention of Indiana first. So it's between her and Bo Bai. And then, if she's selected, then she will, of course, go against a Republican. We don't even know if she's going to be running against Morales or not, but sheesh. Morales, he really is, an immoral guy to be able to hire his stepbrother for a new position that he created himself at a $100K salary. Okay, I just think that's a bit immoral, and there's a few other things that are being investigated, which can't be said here or there, whether he actually did or not. But that nepotism 100% happened and has been questioned on that. I, in fact, personally have called Indianapolis about that, and it has to do with the ethics codes, and it doesn't specifically say you can't show favor to your brother-in-law. It says everything else, but not the brother-in-law. I mean, obviously, the spirit of the law would be that, you shouldn't be able to give your brother-in-law a job at 100K. I mean, even at any salary level, it just looks untowards, and to me, it is. I mean, he claims that he's the best man for the job, but how is that possible that he saw all of the other candidates and he's like, yeah, it's the best one, it's my brother-in-law. Anyways, alright, so she's running, Blythe Potter, to make the office of the Secretary of State boring again, or in other words, scandal-free. She's not a boring person. It was a great conversation. And also, Republicans have been a disaster in the state. Apart from his nepotism, Diego Morales, he gives away voter information directly to the DOJ without anyone's permission, and getting rid of voters without any investigation. Just sort of, this sort of anti-democratic thing you'd expect from a Republican. That's just what they like. They like to have people not vote, and Democrats like people to vote. That's just an interesting compare and contrast if you want to track that trend. It's there. So, one of the things that, she wants to do, or there's a bunch of things, all the things that need to be done are these. And it can be simplified, in her words, down to marketing and advertising. Because isn't that everything? Basically what she means by that is she's marketing to not only Republicans, not only Democrats, but also the people who are left behind, the people who do not have faith in the system anymore. Those people need to have their voices heard. And she's someone who has walked in their shoes. And she'll speak to all of those constituents. And that's important. That's really her background. So that's important. Now, if we go back to that nepotism, she has promised to actually sign a no nepotism pledge. She is promising that she will not basically be involved with any nepotistic schemes in order to favor any members of her family. And, she has to think about this because her husband is actually running for a representative position. So, say for example, he is voting on the funding of the Secretary of State's office. let's go ahead and increase the budget by 10 million. No. She has stated that there will be that she will sign a no nepotism pledge, meaning that her husband too would step out of the room in those matters. If they both happen to be elected, then they'll have to deal with that sort of thing. Where there are conflicts of interest, they'll step out of the room as far as voting on that matter. Okay. And, we can't, she was talking about how we can't really stand for that in our own party, too. So, on the note of that, I sort of felt like, well, Bobai is this political name that is kind of like that, where it's not necessarily nepotism, but it's riding upon a name or a lineage that is similar to the No Kings movement. And it's like, yeah, we don't need a political dynasty. We need people who are competent and who will actually serve the needs of the people. Gone are the days we should think of a name plus money equals good. That formula needs to be thrown out. And we need to get money out of politics. That's important. So important. Now, sorry, I got a little cough. Her political history versus Bobai. I don't know how it's pronounced. I'm not good with names. We're moving on. So, obviously, not necessarily obviously at all, actually, she has a history of listening. She has been listening her whole life to what problems people are facing, and she's heard it again and again and again. People are losing their health care. They're talking about the political corruption and people losing their autonomy. Like, if we're talking about abortion, right? They are losing that health care that they need for themselves and for their families. So, it all comes down to voting, though. She believes, and if we bring everyone together and giving them hope, then we can bring up voter turnout and actually change these policies and actually make change, actually get rid of that corruption, actually get back that health care and that job security and those workers' rights and all those things. If people know that the people that they are electing are anti-healthcare, are anti-workers' rights, are anti all these things from their ideological stance, that they will not vote for them. Why would they vote against their own interests? So she wants someone who will, she is someone who's not from the 1%, and she wants to serve the 99%. And she's lived in the 99%'s shoes herself. So, who can relate to the needs of the 99%? For one, her. And she goes on to talk about, some of her actual experience with civic discourse. So she's talking about these civic things with people and getting into the details of how all this stuff works. And she has basically some accreditation about conscious capitalism, which is what's important when we're dealing with the InBiz website, which is managed by the Secretary of State. So, and she goes into how, on the note of business, she goes into the fact that small businesses are treated like crap in Indiana. And I ask her how are small businesses treated like crap? She goes into a story about basically in the pandemic, she realized that they really have a weird idea of what a small business is, or what a business that deserves funding is. That's what the issue is. Where basically So many businesses had to close down because the state would not take care of them during COVID. People over 500 employees, they were fine. They were fine. Which at that point, it's like, okay, that's a corporation. So big businesses favored in Indiana instead of the small businesses that keep our towns thriving, that keep small business owners, in control, instead of those big businesses like Walmart and etc., all those big box stores. So, how will she help small businesses? I asked her. One of those things is to make the InBiz website easier to use. You should be able to show grants and give grants based on whether or not the user checks whether they're a veteran. When they're signing up a business, if they live in this county and they live in this town, then the site will let them know that X and Y legislation or type of permit needs to be granted because of the location that you're in, particular to your location. So it's something that will streamline the rules and regulations that apply to all those different localities, which is important. And a lot of people, including her, which she goes into, were not informed of those particulars when she was trying to work with her small business. So she knows herself from experience that this system is sort of like really bad. It's clunky and not informative of what people really need to know. So, another question I ask is, how do you talk to your potential constituents, right or left, to let them know that you'll govern in their interest? Okay, so she basically wants to get all voters, even non-voters, and she wants to bring hope for change and to have true representation, not just, well, I have a D next to my name, so now I'm going to do whatever I ideologically want to do. No, her idea is, of course, that she's going to listen. She's going to continue to listen because she already does listen, and make sure that the will of the people is respected. In her office, that's how our representatives are held accountable. They listen and they do as their constituents say. And that's important. Otherwise, if they don't do that, then that's what leads to that disengagement. They don't really care about us. Why would I even get involved in politics if my representative is not going to listen to me? That's the whole point. And she's saying that's what she's going to do. These days, people are protesting. They're calling their politicians, and they are ignored. They're ignored, but she will change that. That's her goal. So, I ran out of questions, so we opened the floor to a bunch of different things. And her experience is that people sort of think of her as a disruptor. They think that she should just give the nomination to Bo Bai and move on. But she recognizes the fact that that is not democratic. There should be options for people so that we can actually... That's not, it's not democratic. If there's no decisions being made, if it's all set and done in backdoor deals, okay, this political lineage will now take the flame for the Democratic Party to run against whatever Republican candidate, and that is the way it will be. No, we need to have some competition here. I think that's a good idea, and improves our ideas and makes them stronger when we have some competition. So she wants to lower the barrier into politics, and part of it is we have this culture of, oh no, don't talk about politics. That's something that could cause some argument, could cause some some feelings to be hurt. Well, how are we supposed to understand anything if we don't talk about it? If we don't talk about how certain political decisions hurt our fellow Hoosiers, are we just supposed to let that hurt continue to happen to those Hoosiers because we're scared of hurting somebody else's feelings? No, we can't do that. We have to talk about the harms and the success of some policies that can help our state be thriving, help our people thrive. So that's important. She also believes in her platform, and we can look at that right now. We can go right here. See, here's her website. And we can see right here. Oh, sheesh. Restoring honor, rebuilding access, fighting for all Hoosiers. I'm just reading off the site here. Blythe is a lifelong Hoosier, U.S. Army veteran, co-owner of locally owned small business in Barkersville. She served in Iraq as part of a personal security detail for General George Casey. Back home, she built a small business from the ground up, guided by the values of service, honesty, and community care. Her journey from Republican voter to Democratic candidate has been shaped by experience, reflection, and the belief that Indiana deserves better than what we've been handed. She wants to increase voter access, modernize outdated systems, fight voter suppression, and restore ethics. And, you can go to this website, blythepotter.com, yourself and check out some more of those talking points. But let's move on to some other things. She wants to have all candidates basically share their platform. All candidates must be required to. In that case, people will know what they want. If they are anti-worker, then they have to disclose it. And that just sort of allows for that additional layer of accountability, and it makes it easier for people to know who they're voting for. And I can, every single time, it is so hard for me to understand all of the different candidates that are in just, my town, whether it's the midterms or whether it's the primaries. There's a lot of people running for office, and it would be so easy if there was just a quick rundown of what each of those candidates supports and what their platform is, what they're looking to change. That's important. And this is something that she wants to actually do. I think there's another concept called a ballot book that shows who people could vote for. In other words, this ballot book would be like a mailer that's sent out. So in your region, you'd get the ballot book, and it would show you who you could vote for, and maybe that's where that information would actually go into that ballot book, showing what their platform is. Also, she's looking to make the campaign finance more transparent, which, oh yeah, that is very important. I think, man, if we had some accountability on that, that could go a long way. But I mean, I think obviously she's doing what she can, but we should definitely go harder and reverse some of those Supreme Court decisions that allow basically for money to buy politics, to win elections. Thinking about Elon Musk and his $20 million that bought so many. And moving on, she wants to have ballot initiatives, and this goes along with trusting the voters. Ballot initiative allows for the voter to have a say in what should happen with their government. Say it is about access to abortion, access to that health care. People can vote on that, and then they can actually get that legislation passed. Say they voted on whether Hoosiers should have access to abortion, and to increase it to whatever week, because, maybe a doctor said, hey, you know what, there's something wrong with the baby and your life is in danger, and maybe it's in the second trimester, or maybe it's in the third trimester, but the doctor just noticed at that point. But the government shouldn't have the say of whether they can't do that. Because if their life is at risk, their life is at risk. It's just that simple. So, she's saying ballot initiatives, basically I think it's like a referendum, basically. And when people are trusted like that, people show up. So that's one of the ways that voter representation will go up or in our state. So that makes sense to me. If people are trusted to actually make decisions, then more people will actually show up to the polls. And we're last in the whole state, so we need to reverse that. And we need to, of course, get money out of politics, and that money that's used to create those ads, we need to counter that propaganda, basically, that misinformation, with truth. That's an important thing to advocate for, against things that, those well-funded misinformation campaigns purport to be true. Now, she goes on to talk about how to be a delegate. You can fill out a CAN 37 at indianavoters.gov. And if we go over here, and then we go Indiana Voters, what you do is you just fill out first name, last name, date of birth, and the county that you're registered to vote in. And then it'll actually show you what precinct you're in and all the information you need in order to fill out the CAN 37. So if we look here, we can see that you can fill it out here right online, and then you're going to download that and then take that to, in my case, it's the Porter County Election and Registration Office in downtown Valpo, but wherever you are, you might have something similar to that. So basically, you fill that out, and you see you're either going to be Democratic Party or Republican Party, and you might vote for a precinct. You might be running for a precinct committeeman or a convention delegate, which is what she talks about. But anyways, that's the interview that I had with Blythe Potter. It was a really fun interview, and I hope you had fun listening, and you could become a delegate. And I hope that you are a voter. At the very least, I hope you vote on these midterm elections, and every time you have a chance. Okay, well, this has been Unscripted with Daniel. Thank you so much for listening on WVLP and for watching on my YouTube channel. It has been a great episode. I've enjoyed making it, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining me on Unscripted with Daniel. And if you're watching on WVLP, be sure to tell a friend about this great broadcast. And if you're listening on YouTube, then subscribe and like this video. Thanks so much. See you next time.